For our research question, we are studying the association between the birth weight of an infant and whether the birth mother has non-gestational diabetes. We got all of our data from the 2020 Natality Public Use File from the CDC. In our causal diagram, you can see that we assumed that the mother's diabetes would have an effect on infant birth weight, as well as weeks born and plurality both affecting infant birth weight as well. We also assumed that the mother's diabetes might have an effect on weeks born and that plurality would also have an effect on weeks born. Here you can see our correlation between our explanatory and our response variable. Our explanatory variable was the baby weight, and our response variable was diabetes. As you can see from this figure, there appears to be very little correlation between a mother having diabetes and the birth weight of the infant. Here you're able to see how weeks born affects our explanatory variable. As you can see, again, the weeks born seems to be very little affected by whether or not the mother has non-gestational diabetes. And lastly, here you can see how plurality affects our response variable. There is a strong correlation between the baby's weight at birth and the plurality of the pregnancy. Here you're able to see our linear regression comparing whether or not the mother has non-gestational diabetes with baby weight, as well as whether or not this was a preterm pregnancy.
And then moving on to our findings, we're shown right here the intercepts that we found and the R-squared value. And this low R-squared value essentially shows that there is little to no correlation between our explanatory and response variables.
And within our findings, we were able to calculate the intercepts for each of these variables along with the standard error. All of our research shows that our explanatory and our response variable had very little correlation like we assumed that they would.
For limitations of future research, so the plurality of birth affected the infant's birth weight. The presence of diabetes in a mother did not affect the infant's birth weight. The presence of diabetes did not affect the week at which an infant was born. Moving on to the future research, based on our findings, it's important for effective mitigation efforts in the lowering of birth weight for cases in which a child is in danger of fetal macrosomia. Essentially, fetal macrosomia is where a child is born above 10 pounds, causing birth defects. One of the major limitations within our analysis is the theory that regardless of diabetes, excess amounts of glucose in a pregnant mother may cause the baby's body to secrete increased amounts of insulin, thus affecting its overall birth weight. Additionally, we were unable to differentiate results between type 1 and type 2 diabetes, considering the limitations in the data not offering the information.